I went in the changing rooms and there they are spraying champagne. You know, Stewie, you're staying up. And I was like, I can't celebrate it. I was, wow, the standard's actually high. And Beads is like Graham Turner. You know, he expects this.
Everybody was dead set on the team apart from one player. So it does mean a lot to them, but it is very hard to celebrate it sometimes because my cynical Roy Keenness in my head just gets annoying. And that's why I just love the fact that my career has been at a club like this, at this club, with this fans, and this ground, and this city and everything. It's just been flipping perfect for me, you know?
But then I went to Pitts and said, mate, we want to do it your way. Pitts like, great. And then literally I rang David Keat and said, mate, we've done this. We want Jamie to be in charge. And then David said, I'm looking to bring somebody else in next week. I was like, who? And I was like, Rich O'Kelly. I was like, do it. Just do it. Well, I'm not too sure about how Jamie will get. I said, just do it. We're going down if you don't. So just do it. And then he brought Rich O'Kelly in. And I sat down with Rich at the end of the season, to be fair, because Rich was doing the contract negotiations. And I said to Rich, he said, will you stay? And I said, Rich, if you're manager, I'll stay. I said, Shrewsbury have been on the phone, Graham's been on the phone, John Truitt, but if you stay, I'll stay with you. And he was like, because that's what he wanted to know. He wanted to know which players would stay if he was manager to see whether he would take the job. In the end, he didn't take the job. Maybe he didn't want me. maybe I was the problem. Maybe I forced him out. But yeah, I said to him, mate, if you stay, I will stay. But then obviously Rich moved on again. And then I went to Shrewsbury with Graham.
Yeah, and obviously that next season then we were in the conference, Shrewsbury in the league. FA Cup then happened.
Yeah, that was a bad day.
That year, which we needed because we're really good sides. You know, those players were good. You know, Sam Clucas, my family who are watching this all laugh. I didn't particularly like him in League Two. I thought he was a bit too. He didn't have enough about him. Like he was quite thin.
Yeah.
And he was quite one-dimensional in what he was trying to do. Second season, I don't know if it was. He came back a lot. You know, a bit bulkier, and it seems to have worked on what he'd done.
Yeah, he struggled in League Two, but then I saw how well he'd done, and like I said, you know, like with Graham, you know, they got Clucas playing and they brought in Ryan Bowman and people like that. They almost gambled again on these offcasts, which worked. You know, it really worked for them that season because they finished just outside the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, that's it. And then so we came here with Shrewsbury, and I remember playing Shrewsbury with Hereford. God, if you lost against Shrewsbury, Graham went mental at you, mental. And then we came here and lost with Shrewsbury against Hereford, and Graham went mental. Yeah, it was kind of like, you know, I got to realise what it's like for, you know, when we beat Port Vale down here 4-1, I think, in the FA Cup, and we give teams good goings in the LDV vans, and that I got to experience the coming back for a cup game with that Hereford crowd, with a team that's performing quite well and he's ready to go at you. And yeah, we weren't the best of teams as Shrewsbury. We were in League One, obviously. Graham, small budget. We weren't the best of teams. But yeah, you know, I got to experience that kind of coming down to Hereford and getting turned over in the FA Cup. Yeah. You know, so I like to experience everything: relegation, promotion. You know, getting turned over by Hereford in the FA Cup,
broken teeth and nose,
turning people over in the FA Cup. You know, I've had everything here.
And then you come back to Hereford, which was sadly our final season as Hereford United. What was it like coming back?
That's my least favourite season out of my whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what I've said about Oldham, where I didn't play, but I was about to sign for Newport. Justin Edinburgh wanted me at Newport, where Tony James was saying, "Oh yeah, bring Purdie in." But Justin hadn't offered me a contract. He kept saying he wanted me. I think he was probably looking for somebody else, and I was like second choice. And then Martin Foyle rang me on the Thursday, offered me a deal. I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll take it." Justin Edinburgh rang me on the Friday, offered me the deal. So I'm like, so I'll ring Foyle back. And I say, look, mate, Newport have offered me a deal. It's more money. It's in the league. It's turned my head. But I said to him, and this is the only reason I said this to him is because it's Hereford. I said, look, I gave you my word. I said I was signing. So if you think that I should sign for you, if you think that's strong enough for me to sign for you, I'll sign for you. And he rang me back on the Monday and said, yeah, mate, I think because you said it, you should come. So I thought, it's Hereford. I'm not making the wrong decision. I'll come. That's the only decision I wish I hadn't made in my career. I should have gone to Newport. Only because of the way the season turned out. Not because I didn't want to come to Hereford, but that extra League Two pension, extra money. You know, I'm 31 now, so pension, extra money. Get released after a year. Okay, I'm still at a League Two team, so I'll probably come back to the conference or get another League Two team. You know, but at the same time, it might not have led me to Hereford FC. So I come here, and to be honest, the easiest way I can say it is, Foyle wasn't the manager that I thought he was going to be, and I wasn't the player that Foyle thought I was going to be. I had a really poor season on the pitch, worst season by a mile, really struggled, never really feel part of the team. Like I say, we had a lot of young lads, and we'd draw a game, we'd lose a game, they'd be out buying a £20 bottle of champagne in Lytton Tree, and that's just, I'd got to that age now where that wasn't me. I was professional, and you know, we'd have a game, someone would have a really bad game, but they'd nutmeg someone. Oh, mate, did you see that, Megs? Did you see that, Megs? And I'm like, I couldn't give a crap about who you've nutmegged. That means no, you've been terrible. Your man scored 2 goals. Yeah, but did you see that nutmeg? Did you see it? I'll make sure the cameraman sends me it's like, wow, that's what we're here for, is it? So I hated it, really did not like it. We had some real good guys. Luke Graham was great, the captain. Dom Collins, great lad, great player. But then we also had the players that just would not put the effort in. I won't name them because I'm sure they'll disagree, you know, but we went to Barnet and we got beat 2-0, I think. And a lad came off, he'd been concussed about 15 minutes, but it was one of those which was going under because it was Beads' second game, something like that. He was going under, so he got concussed, so he had to come off, and you know, and then he was out in London for his birthday and that night, and it's like, okay, so you weren't concussed, were you? Just couldn't be arsed, you know, you don't want to fight. Same person and a couple of others, then when we're not getting paid properly, they're not coming into training, I can't afford to come into training, okay, no problem, then, oh, you're out on Saturday night. Probably cost you about 150 quid, that's your petrol money, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it was a really bad season. I came in with all good. Foyle, I can't remember his assistant's name, but they wanted me to be a bit of a fitness coach as well because I was doing my personal training. I'd be working at a gym a little bit in my off time, so I came in. But then I started to introduce these new ways of training, whereas the assistant especially just wanted the old school toe taps on the bench and running on the spot and press ups and sit ups. And I'm like, well, you know, we can get better strength like what Purdie used to do with me years ago. But they didn't really want it, and then we just kind of never really worked as me and Foyle or anything like that. And then obviously Foyle left, Beads came in, and to be fair, Beads just said it's up to you if you want to get relegated. Nothing to do with me. If you get relegated, then on me. You know, I'm only coming in for these last few games. He didn't do much. He just said, do what you want, like, you know. But what he did was he played the players that wanted to play. So it wasn't a case of, well, he's good. He can't be bothered. You can tell he's gone. And then he obviously brought in Jared, he brought in Corey up front. And we managed to stay up on the last day of the season, which didn't really mean much in the end, but at the time, obviously, you know, I really struggled with it though, really struggled with it. I talk about being a bit older and cynical. And I remember that Aldershot game. I remember afterwards that euphoria, like, you know, you're out on the pitch. But that just went within about 5-10 minutes for me because Hereford United have just finished third bottom in the conference on goal difference maybe, or by a point. I can't celebrate that. I've really struggled. I stayed out on the pitch because I could see the frauds, unfortunately, as I call it, and people won't like me saying it, like, but I could see them all lapping it up, you know what I mean? And then I did a little interview, I think it was probably with Keith or Nibbo or something out on the pitch. I went in the changing rooms and there they are spraying the champagne, you know, Stewie, are staying up. And I was like, I can't celebrate it. You know, I'm so glad that the club has stayed up because hopefully now we can start getting back to where we should be. But I can't celebrate finish third bottom in the conference with Hereford. Maybe if it was third bottom in the conference with, you know, at that time, Southport, you know, team which that's, you know, like you say, you go up and you want to just consolidate, something like that, but not Hereford. We should not be anywhere near the third bottom in the conference. So I really struggled. All the lads came back to Hereford and went out that night. I didn't go out. I couldn't celebrate it. because I just felt like it was real, like kind of, and I'm a party pooper because it was a big thing, and I know the fans really enjoyed staying up, and sometimes staying up's better than finish 10th. It's better to win 3-2 in the last minute against bottom of the league than win 5-0 against mid-table, you know what I mean? It's that euphoria. But it just didn't sit with me, just did not sit with me well that like I was celebrating being there. I was more focused on, right, next season, let's get back up near the top of the league. Let's get Hereford where they should be. I'd already kind of gone into that mindset.
Yeah, I think that's probably fans' perspective on it as well, is that it was a fantastic day because in those moments, especially, I don't know how much you know as a player on the pitch about what's going on at other, whether you can tell what's going on at other places. Obviously, sometimes there's a cheer when Salisbury, it was Chester were playing, scored or whatever. But you had all this emotion, and then obviously we ended up, our match finished, theirs carried on and then finished. And
then there was a cheer and it wasn't the end.
Oh, that was ridiculous. yeah. That still haunts me to this day every time I watch that video back, because someone obviously decided that they were just going to cheer.
Yeah.
And it was like, but the game isn't, and like we were trying on the radio, on the phone, it was just, you couldn't.
Yeah, I think that comes back to being on the pitch and being a fan, because, and we'll talk about obviously the Vase and everything. The one thing which is really disappointing for me is that when I scored my goal, I then got I'm back in the game. I didn't get to celebrate. I didn't get to jump up and down for 5 minutes with all my mates and stuff like that. It is very business and pleasure type thing. And I was ecstatic. I actually jumped over the barriers and then over a big metal barrier to get in with the fans at Aldershot after the game. And then I realised I'd got in the section where they don't sell tickets. So I literally jumped over these barriers and I stood there, and there was the big stand here and then the standing bit here. And I was in this like little loft there, I jumped back over the barriers then. So yeah, I was ecstatic. But then I think just my mood for that whole season, I was disappointed in the whole season. A bit like I said, after beating Halifax at Leicester, I immediately switched into it's just not good enough. This has not been good enough this season. So I couldn't celebrate further than the point of the fact that we finally stayed up.
Obviously, there were a lot of financial issues well documented, and then Agombar and Lonsdale came in. Do you mind kind of talking through what happened after Aldershot? Like what was happening behind the scenes then?
Yeah, so I spoke to David Keat and said I want to stay. David Keat had lost the dressing room. I remember one game he came in towards the end of the season. He had a go at us because he was putting money into the club, and we were like, "Wow, hold on a minute here. You're not paying us at the moment, or we're getting a very little amount of money. So don't come in and moan at us. Actually give us a bit of like enthusiasm or something to help. Let's do it together." But I rang him and said that I want to stay. He said he's not sure what's happening, and then obviously Agombar bought it for £1. I know that he could have sold it to somebody else. And again, when I talk about shutting the doors off to the fans and stuff, I think it was out of spite that he didn't sell it to the fans or to the right thing. I think he sold it to Agombar because it was, no, you've had a go at me. And he did go through a lot, to be fair. I know people were hammering his wife and stuff, which I think crosses the line. But I think he, out of spite, he didn't give it to the supporters, he gave it to Agombar. Then as he came in, and there was a coach, can't remember his name.
Ellis, is it the coach?
Yes, I think it was. I came and met him, and I saw Sam Gwynn as well. Sam Gwynn had come in as well. And I said to Mark, mate, I'd like to stay. I want to try and build us back up. And he offered me a trial down at Victoria Park, and I thought, I don't know, like maybe my ego got the better of me, but I just thought, I don't think I could go on trial for the club, which, it was like an open trial thing, and I thought, that's not me. I'm turning 32 now. I've proven myself, and that I will do a good job. So it was almost like I could just tell everything that I'd known about Hereford United. It was a different club now. The way he spoke to me was just like, don't care, I don't care that you've played here for 8 seasons. I don't care what you've done for the club, doesn't bother me. New club now. This is what we're doing. I know Sam Gwynn went to the trials and he spoke to McGuinner afterwards, and he was like, mate, it was the worst day of my life. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. The actual setup of it was terrible, so unprofessional. And then I became youth team manager. So Hereford in the community. We had some real good players. We had Carlos Murrier. These players who still played local. Carlos obviously played for Hereford FC. Carlos Murrier. We had Lewis Fletcher, who's captain of Peggy now. And we had a few others. We had a really good team. It was with an educational programme, and we played with the Hereford badge. We went and played Chelsea's like development team, Tottenham, things like that. It was really, really good. And we were around the guys quite a lot. So I think 2 or 3 of our players would go and train with the first team. But then they'd come back and say, we don't want to go and train again, we don't like it. Just, again, unprofessional. And then they got another coach came in after Mark Ellis. Can't remember his name, big guy he was. And I just remember me, Steve Brotherhood, and Johnny Evans, who were doing in the community bit, were sat up in the stand watching the training session, and it was just the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen. I felt sorry for the players when the club went bust. I felt real sorry for them. I was playing for Tamworth at the time. I'd gone to Tamworth. But there were some players, I can't remember their names now. I know Lewis Morrison was here, and there was a decent player called Shav, or something like that. Because I came to watch one game, and they were sold a dream. You know, we will get, because all of the players were part of Mark Ellis's and Agombar's scouting network. So all of them signed on contract. So the plan was they'll come, they'll play well, and then when they get sold or they get signed for a different club, they won't get sold because they're on non-contract. They'll sign for another club, and then that agency will get the fees. So then that goes to Mark Ellis and Agombar, people like that, you see. So you could tell, I met Lonsdale a few times. He tried to sell me the dream of like, no, we want to negotiate the youth team. And then a month later, we'll take your balls off you, we'll take your bibs off you, we don't want you wearing the badge anymore, just because I started to pull my players away from it, because I could see where it was going. So I started going, right, okay, we're going to do our own thing. They were asking for our play. Oh, can you come and train with us? Can you come and play? So I'm not sure whether Carlos played a couple of games for him. And I said, no, they've got their education, because they were doing education. Education's more important. So then we started to have a bit of a rift. And then obviously it got wound up December, wasn't it? I think it was. Because strangely enough, we were on our Christmas night out for United and Community. I was on crutches because I'd blown my knee out playing for Tamworth. And I remember we were just going out, and then we heard the news and all the fans coming. So we came down and we saw the lads emptying out their stuff because they were sleeping here and stuff like that. So it was a really bad time, and obviously it was hard to think, is it the best thing at the time? And I think obviously we work in hindsight, don't we? And it was the best thing in time. You know, it wasn't nice that that people boycotted it and stuff like that. I understand that we kind of helped drive it into the ground type thing. But if we hadn't of, I do think that there might still have been a Hereford United. There probably wouldn't be, but it wouldn't be the Hereford United that we know. It would have been still the death as it was of Hereford United, because as I say, that club and that, people were so detached. They had no care of Hereford, no care of anything. So it was a real tough to see, but luckily, and I think what's helped as well, if Hereford FC had have just stayed in step 5, then again, hindsight, we'd go, well, we shouldn't have done it. But I think the success that we've had with Hereford FC just shows that, yeah, maybe that was the right decision at the end of it.
Yeah. And that brings us nicely on to Hereford FC, obviously. New club, lots of things to sort out, but you obviously signed for Beadle as the manager. Now we all know it was your connection. Was it just because you wanted to be part of that new creation? Was it Beadle? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd blown my knee out, and I'd come back too early for Tamworth. I played the last 5 games and I wasn't fit and my knee wasn't quite right, but I know I've got to play, else I'm not getting a club next season. And I had offers from a couple of Conference North teams and stuff like that, and I spoke to Beads. And obviously the budget was low to start off with. I think they gave him a really small budget, and I was like, oh wow, mate, I don't know whether I can financially come for that. So he ran me back and he offered me more money, to be fair. And because it was Hereford, and because I was like, yeah, let's go back and get them where there was. I don't know, I very much doubt anyone's ever done this for Hereford, especially Hereford FC. But he offered me a deal, and I said, I'll tell you what, take that amount off the deal and just give me it as a win bonus, because I want to work for that. So that's good if we're doing well and I'm doing what I should be doing and is winning. So he offered me that. Take off that and give me it back as a win bonus, because I said, because then if we're not winning, the club's got a bit more money. You know what I mean? You know, that was my mindset. That's how much I wanted at that point, because I'd spoken to a couple of other clubs. Then I spoke to Beads. Obviously, Tony James had just signed, because there were 7 of us, I think, that initially signed. Ben Miller, Max Kontich, Tony James, Dylan Banella, myself, might have been one more. Harvey Rivers, it might have been. And I just thought, yeah, this is going to be the project for me now. And then, yeah, so I signed, we came in. We had a lot of local lads come down for trials, not trials, but joining training, Sam Pearce, you know, the players that have done well for Peggy and that. And I think it was almost kind of like, we've had big fallouts, obviously, with Westfields and Peggy and that, you know, oh, they're not that good. But it was quite refreshing to get these players in and then realise, wow, the standard's actually high. And Beads is like Graham Turner. You know, he expects this. And if it's not good enough, he'll tell you about it. So we trained, and then obviously we were missing a couple of players. We were just not quite, we got Birchie in. He came for a trial match at Merthyr. From flipping West Brom's under 20, captain of West Brom's under 23s. I don't know why we couldn't get anywhere else, but he came to us. And then we had Peggy and we had John Mills and Pablo Asian turn up. So Beads was after Millsy for quite a bit and managed to sign Millsy, and then said to Millsy, I need another striker, do you know anyone? Oh, I've got my mate Pablo if you want him to come. So he was like, yeah, bring him along. And then Peggy, Millsy and Pabs come on, and then that was our squad for the first 6 or 7 games. Started off really well, 4-0 or 4-1 here, I think. Millsy hat-trick. Then 1-0 loss at Stourbridge, I think it was. I can't remember who we played after that. It might have been Roaster away when we won 4-3.
Yeah.
And that 4-3 was like, right, here we go. 3-0 down after 17 minutes, wasn't it? And they had a big captain, and he was a proper knobhead. When they scored the third, he came flying past and he'd smack you on the back as he's running past and that, laughing in your face, you know, big old Hereford. And then I wound him up. So when it went 3-3, I had a pop at him. And then when it went 4-3, I scored the penalty, celebrating, and I ran back past him and had another pop at him. 20 seconds later, he got sent off because he headbutted Tony James.
Oh,
yeah. He'd just gone. And then we found out when we got in the changing rooms, because obviously my penalty was the 93rd minute or something like that. He hadn't even got changed. He'd gone in, got his car keys and just drove home. He'd just lost his head. So we thought, great, here we go. And then we lost 5-4 at home to Coleshill next game. So it was really up and down. And then we brought in Jamie Willits. And then we brought in Greenie. Now, Greenie, like I said, I cannot love a man more than I love Greenie. Not just because of his physique and his looks or anything, but as a person, I love Greenie. And when Greenie came in, I mean, Greenie is a Rolls Royce. Greenie, I talk about Johan Arquan having the potential. Greenie could have been a championship player at least for his whole career. He was so good, Greenie. He likes the nights out. He likes working hard enough, but he'll never be the hardest worker, if you know what I mean. But we get Greenie in, and Greenie just changed us, obviously. And then we went on the mad run, absolutely crazy run, where I think we lost, obviously, who was the other team went to? Horrible team.
Aldershot.
No. It was
Hina, was it?
No,
Highgate.
Highgate.
Yeah.
So we lost to Highgate, didn't we? We lost to Stourbridge, then we lost to Highgate, then we beat Roaster. And then Highgate beat us down here as well. Because we had Bish. Now, Bish was great. Bish is Richard O'Kelly. So good. So that season, main season, myself, Birchie in midfield. We'd have Pabs, we'd have Millsy Simo. Right mid had flutter and change. Ben Miller, Sid, Joe Tamelty. This is before Moose came in. And then at half time, Bish would be there and he'd be like, look, Pez, if you just play off Birchie here, or Birchie, he was so good, Bish, so good. And then you got Beads just shouting at you. Honestly, Beads, if you're not winning, it's because you're not good enough. That's it. There was no tactics with Beads. If you're not winning, you're not good enough. That was literally it. We get to A to, I remember him saying, we get to A to B as quick as we can. And then he'd go, with quality. So there was no real tactics with Beads. It's just, you've got to win. You've got to win a game of football.
How did you personally find that transition from being a professional footballer to the ninth, like we're talking ninth here, middle of the Premier League?
Well,
you know, you're talking about that guy like elbowing you behind you. Like, how did you personally find it?
I think the first 7 games, because then I did my knee again away at Westfields, and I was out for 5 or 6 games, something like that. And it was I remember speaking to Purdie about it. It's different. Yeah, it's a totally different game. So just because you've played at this level, you've got to learn to adapt, because you play at this level, right? And then your midfielder knows that he's too far off you. So if Greeny passes me the ball, they can't come and press me. So I can turn, I can have a touch, I can look up, they'll block gaps. Now they're just going to run at you. It's totally different, and the pitches aren't good enough to flick it around the corner and go very much. So you have to totally adapt, and it took me those 7 games to really adapt to it. I played well against Roaster second half, played well against Coleshill, I was poor up at Westfields, played well in the first game. Stourbridge didn't play particularly well. So it was a real adjustment, and Purdie had to do the same, and that's why we didn't start well. Purdie had to do the same, and a couple of us, Greeny, had to do the same, because it's just totally different now. You can't rely on what you did there. Then when we started to get on that run and the confidence comes up, then it was just easy. It became quite easy to play against these players now, because now I've learned it. They can run at me now, and then I now know that I've got Simo up front, because we brought Simo in. Now Simo's my type of player. I can play. I hate playing with Millsy. Hate it, because you play up to him and he'll like dangle a foot and jump out the way, and then they get the ball. Simo would just stand there and I could play off him. God, I love playing with Simo. So now I'm in the flow. I remember us going to Sporting Cowser, and again it was us, Cowser and Aldershot. There's an Aldershot just above Cowser. We beat them 3-0. The first 10 minutes they had 2 midfielders. They just ran around like headless chickens, running into me and Purdie. And I remember Purdie saying to me after about 6 minutes, mate, Purdie, what are we going to do? And I said, mate, I literally went, Purdie, give it 5 minutes, mate. They'll be knackered. 15 minutes, the guy's bent over on his knees, gasping for breath, because they'd just gone for us. And you know what I mean? It was just, I just said to Purdie, mate, get through the first 10, 15 minutes, flick around the corner, get it in the channels, we'll squeeze up, and they'll be gone. And they just went. Most teams just came at us, thought, yeah. And then after 10, 15 minutes, you know, what you have got when you're myself, Purdie, Greeny, you've got that instilled fitness and conditioning where I'm not going to get tired after 60, 70 minutes, and they're getting tired after 15, 20. So that season became easy, to be honest. We still had the Aldershot game away. We obviously lost at home to Highgate, where Beads wasn't here, and we'd had a few injuries. We had loads of people out. So I think we had Max Kontich playing, who was nervous coming back in and stuff like that. That's why we were weak that game. But yeah, it just became run of the mill, a bit like those 11 games for Hereford United in the Chester season. We'll be fine. We're going to win. We're going to win. We were just too good for anyone else in the league by the first 10 games, something like that.
Yeah, obviously 28 wins in a row then, and even at the end it was a draw with Aldershot here. What is it like on those runs? Because you go into it knowing, you know, you're probably going to win, but as it gets to sort of 10 wins in a row, 15 wins in a row, 20, how does that
It's the mentality. Now, I think, and it's, again, it might just be me blowing my own trumpet, but I think the reason why we had so much success with Hereford FC is we had a core of people in that changing rooms who would not let anything slip. So Beads wouldn't do it, but then you've got myself, you've got Greeny, Jimmy Oates, Pablo Haitian was great. Pabs was amazing as like a speaker and talking to people, and we controlled that changing room. So if we brought anybody in who didn't quite fit in, they had to adjust. And it sounds almost like my way or the highway, but they had to adjust, else you ain't going to work. But we'd make them adjust. It wouldn't be a case of, nah, mate, you ain't doing that here, go away. It would be, look, mate, this is how we do it. Buy into this. And that keeps that mentality going. You know, as soon as someone's like, oh, mate, it'll be 5-0 on Saturday, well, mate, let's first 10, 15 minutes, let's turn them, let's squeeze it up. You know, it's keeping that routine of every one game. Beads would be the same. Don't care about 2 games, 3 games, 4 games time. Next game, we win that game. Okay, now we win that game. And if you lose that, you can start to fall away. But we had like I said, we had a really good core of 4 or 5 of us, which wouldn't let that slip. And Beads brought the players in to make sure as well. You know, Beads had the budget in the end, and people say anyone could have done what Beads did. It can't, because Beads brought in the right players. Yeah. Beads could have gone for some more flamboyant players, and he could have afforded them, but they might not fit in with the way we were in that changing room, which was, we're going to win every game. A bit like, and you watch the podcasts and you watch things like that, Roy Keane. We don't get ahead of ourselves. We go into the next game and we try and win it, and we do everything we can. Those standards were set by that core 4 or 5 players, and then we bring in players later on like Dara O'Shea. Oh God, you know what I mean? You know, another Jimmy Oates who is like there to win a game of football, and we're not going to shout or anything at anybody. We're not going to beat people down. But if you're not doing it, come on. Okay, now that's not good enough, mate. Sort yourself out. And it was like that type thing. It was that real tight, strong dressing room.
What does it feel like for you? I saw Dara O'Shea marking Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the Euro qualifiers, and Jared Bowen in the Premier League. Like, when you see these guys go onto that level, like, how do you feel?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I get cynical and think, why didn't I do it? But like because the way I see it, Jared, when he was here, you could tell Jared had something. But it's not about how good you are at this level. It's whether you can maintain that as you go up. So you could get like Millsy is the perfect example. Scored 40 goals 3 seasons in a row. Never played higher than the Southern Prem, I don't think. He might have gone to Bath maybe in the Conference South, I'm not sure. And there's a reason why. It's because he can't maintain it at those levels. Whereas Jared has, Dara has, you know, I maintained it up to League One. Not playing any different. Jared's not doing any different for West Ham than he did here. He's just doing exactly the same against better players. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, same with Moose. You know, a bit of an enigma and everything, and sometimes flattered to deceive, but so much ability. But it's that potential, and that's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, the reason why some people don't make it is because Millsy, let's say, he loves his chop. But I always used to say to Millsy, you're lucky that you play in this league, because if you play in the conference, everyone gets videos every single game. There you go, John Mills. There you go, look at his chop. Don't fall for it. No one will fall for it. I never falled for his chop in training. Used to hate it because he'd go to chop me and then I'd just stand still and take the ball off him. And then it really messed him up, because then he'd go to chop me, then realise it's me, so his chop won't work. And then he'd try and look like he's going to chop me, but not chop me, and he'd get himself all muddled up and someone tackle him. So it's those levels, you know. So seeing Dara and Jared and Moose as well at Plymouth and stuff like that, it's great to see that they've had that drive and determination, and you can see it. Not from Moose as much. As I say, Moose was a bit younger and didn't quite, I don't think, was as switched on, which is, we'll talk about Wembley. But Dara and Jared, you could tell straight away they had that attitude. Dara especially. Dara was an absolute pleasure to play with. You know, he was great, Dara was. A lot like Jimmy Oates. Jimmy went to Exeter, struggled a little bit because all of a sudden I used to like playing against Jimmy in training, because I felt if I was up against him one-on-one, I could chop him. He didn't quite defensively, strong, fit, but then all of a sudden he goes to League Two, everyone's strong and fit in League Two. So now, is your game good enough? You know, Jared Bowen likes to jink inside. Well, now when the Premier League players understand that that's what you're going to do, are you still good enough? And he is. But some people could take Georgie King-Clancy, best, and Darren Huckabee, best championship players you'll ever see. Can't quite do it in the Prem because that standard's just that bit better.
Yeah. Do you think someone like Jimmy Oates would have benefited from maybe going to conference first, or wouldn't that really matter?
Yeah, I think Jimmy as well. I mean, Kelsey's missus was from Canada, Jimmy's from Australia, so I think the plan was always to go back to one of the two. And Jimmy, it's very hard, Birchie will tell you this, it's very hard to go from such a good team like Hereford FC was and then go somewhere else, because it's not the same. I used to say to people, you'll leave here and you'll realise it's not the same. That dressing room's not the same, the enjoyment's not the same, not winning every week isn't the same. And I think it was Pabs said to me, which said, oh, mate, I totally understand where you went, because Pabs went to Salisbury and he was like, it was so different. I didn't like it. It's because what we had for those first 3 years was almost false. Winning so many games with such a good group of players mentally, you don't get that at other clubs. So it's very hard then to ingratiate into a different mentality. And you go somewhere like Exeter and you're losing games, and then you've got acid going around the changing rooms. All of a sudden it's like, I don't like it. This isn't me, and you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel confident.
We wanted to touch on Wembley, actually. Obviously, treble winning season in the first season, and then the final at Wembley. What was the build-up like for that? I mean, you know, you beat Salisbury in the semi-final.
Oh, Salisbury was great, wasn't it? Flipping heck, you know. That was the first time, obviously, where it was like, it felt like the good old days for Hereford. Because we finally had a team that could compete with us, that had a fan base as well. It was I love those 2 games against Salisbury. It was 1-0 here, I think, Moose header. Horse made a great save towards the end at the Meadow end. And then we went to Salisbury, and then, you know, their fans are there, our fans are there. Such a big game. And we got battered first 20, 25 minutes. We didn't get out of our half. We got absolutely battered. And this is why I talk about Moose. Moose was starting to have troubles at Hartbury. He's getting behind on his coursework. And the agreement with Hartbury for him and Sid were coursework. Their education comes first. So if that starts to fall, we start pulling them out of the team. And I think Moose at Salisbury, I think he saw that as a bit of like a, watch me. Because first off, I went mental at him. He was giving the ball away every time, and he was on the halfway line trying to do tricks and turns, and we were getting battered, absolutely battered. I remember screaming at him. I won't say the language, but I screamed at him, and I literally said to him, mate, this isn't college football now, because this now was this bigger game, do you know what I mean? And then Simo scored just before half time, and then second half, we won it at a canter. I know we only won 2-1, but we won that at a canter. You know, Moose missed his penalty. Joe Tamelty scored. I think I hit the post in the last few minutes from a free kick. But that second half, we found it so comfortable against them. The same as when we obviously won the league against them the next season, 4-1 at their place, or 4-0, I think it was. And then we had a good run going up into the final, obviously. And then it was, hi, Stig. Do we need to start? Mate, I talk too much, Stig.
You on now?
Yeah.
Come on in.
Hello. Welcome.
How are you, mate? You okay?
Should we get you in as well?
Oh.
Hey. Nice
Just got to Wembley.
Have we?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about Wembley.
The first 75 seconds.
Yeah, I don't remember the day with any fondness in it. It's depressing, isn't it? We're okay, Steve, anyway.
Really good, thank you.
Good. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought professional like Robbie would have been.
I thought we were getting kicked out. I thought we were getting kicked out.
Still Leslie.
So the build up to it, I remember you could start to see players struggle with nerves. The week leading up to it, so we played on the Sunday. We played on Sunday, was it Saturday?
Could have been Sunday.
I remember now,
Sunday.
It was Sunday, wasn't it?
Sunday, yeah.
So we were travelling up on the Friday, and we did our last training session back here on the Thursday. And I remember, I'm not sure whether I nearly made Jamie Willits cry in training. You could tell everyone was like getting a bit hepped up and everything, and Willits was starting to bark at people, which wasn't really in Willits. He's a big guy, but he actually was quite timid. And he was at the back, and they went and scored. It was a little game and everything, and he started having a go at everybody. So I had a go at him. I said, look, mate, if you're at the back by yourself and we haven't realised, call us back. You can't just say, well, none of us have been lazy, but you've got to bring it the same as in a game. You know, right backs line up, mate, sit in. You need to sit in. And he came back at me, so I went back again, and then he kind of like went into a daze. He just stared forward, and he wouldn't look at me. And afterwards, after training, I went up to him. I said, mate, it's nothing personal. It's just, you know, I want to win the game. And he said, I can't look at you. I can't look at you because I'll cry. And I thought, wow, okay, so starting to get to people now. And then we travel up. We train at QPR's training ground on it might have been the Saturday.
Would that have been the first time that season you stayed together overnight?
Yeah. So the Friday night, we're in the hotel. Saturday morning, we're at breakfast, and we're trying to guess the team for tomorrow. We've got training, and we know Beads is going to tell us the team in training, but we're trying to guess the team. And we'll get back to that. So then we go to training, and Beads names the team, and there was one player in particular just went. He was playing, but you could just tell it went. The nerves just went bang on that player, because he'd named the team, and then it was like, right, Purdie's take him for a jog around the thing. As before I could even say, right, come on, boys, that player was already off jogging. It was almost just tunnel vision. And you could just tell, like with Jamie on the Thursday, you could just tell the occasion had hit them. And then it was fine. I was in a room with Greenie. Greenie was tanning up the night before. Say about it. He was tanning. He was asking me whether I wanted his tanning. He had a tanning mitt. So he's tanning mitting, and he's saying, Purse, do you want it? I'm like, no. And he's like, mate, if you score a goal, you get your top off, mate. You need to tan up. Honestly, I'm like, mate, I'm all right. I think Alice had given me a bit of a spritz on my face. But I was like, mate, I'm all right, but he's tanning everything. So then we go to the game, and we know what happened. And,
You know, just before the night before, how were you actually feeling? Were you feeling?
Fine, absolutely fine.
Were you not nervous?
No, I was really excited. We'd done something, strangely enough, and I've said this many a time. So the balls were so different, and they flew through the air, real weird. And we'd done a training session at QPR, and there was a little thing, if we get a free kick, we'd touch it, and I'll hit it. And I hit one, and it went further than I've ever kicked the ball before, just over the bar, but it just went like a missile. And I remember getting into bed that night, and I could stink of fake, I could stink I remember being sat there thinking, if I get one out, I'm just going to hit it. The way these balls fly, I just hit it. I don't care if it goes for us then, I'll just hit it. I was fine, absolutely fine, got up for breakfast, blah, blah, blah. But I was getting cramped by half time. So the occasion had got to me without me knowing about it. It was a big pitch and we were chasing shadows, you know. After that first goal, we had first 15, 20 minutes, we battered him. I think Sid hit the bar maybe, Pabs had a hell of a chance, someone cut one back to me, got it mixed up with his feet. But it was almost like reverse of what I said we were doing to teams. We blew ourselves out in those first 20 minutes. We thought we were going to win. We went into that game, we'll be fine, we'll win it 3 or 4. First game we've ever done it all season. I didn't think we did enough work on them. They did a lot of work on us. And so then the biggest thing I ever get asked is this team selection for Wembley. The big one question that always comes back. So we were all sat around the breakfast table talking about who's going to be playing. Everybody was dead set on the team apart from one place. Everybody knew what the team was going to be and what it should be. Everyone was in agreement. Horse in gold, Jimmy Oates right back, Greeny centre half, Joel left back, Sid, me, Birchie, Joe Tonelty, Pab Simon. Everyone was saying that's got to be the team. Mills had gone off the boil and we couldn't carry him. Moose had gone off the boil and was struggling at Hartbury, and we were worried that this is my show. The only thing that we were asking about was should it be Willits or Summers? Jamie Willits or Nate Summers? I wanted Summers. I was like, it's a big pitch, we need a passer. Whereas Jamie is a defender, you know. So that is the whole consensus of the team pretty much. Some people might say, well no, but the general consensus with Millsy and Pabs Millsy and Moose should not have started at Wembley, and I agree with Beads on that. Hindsight's a different thing. But at that time, Millsy and Pabs, Millsy and Simmers, Millsy and Moose their form wasn't good enough to start. Joe Tonelli had come in for a lot of that end of the season, scored goals. Moose was struggling a little bit at Hartbury. So I agree with Beads on the team selection, apart from I'd have played Summers. Fast forward to the game, the Morpeth manager said to Beads in the bar after the game, why did you not play Bundu? And Beads was like, oh well, you know, I said, we arranged most of our team around the fact that Moose was going to play, and when he wasn't on that team sheet, we had the biggest lift ever. So that was huge for them. Right. Moose not playing, just that name on the team sheet, that was huge for their confidence. So it had a big impact. And in the game, if you ever watch it back, what you'll see is they had 3 up front. One stood on Jimmy, one stood on Greeny, one stood on Joel, let Jamie Willits have the ball. So our spare man in that game was Jamie Willits. Jamie, great defender, did real well for the club, but the amount of time you watch, he tries to clip it, goes out of play, he's not comfortable on the ball. Whereas their spare player was this holding centre mid, the bold lad in midfield, a great player. Been around a bit, little blonde lad as well in midfield, and we didn't change quick enough. So we were 4-4-2. Bashing them first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, then they start to get on top of us a little bit. We should have just gone to Pabs, dropping on the bold lads, Simo go up top with that, and then let one of their centre halves be the spare man. But we didn't. Whether that's Beads or whether we can do it on the pitch, but we didn't change it. And those there 3 in midfield just had the freedom. It was such a big pitch, such a good pitch, and they were good players. I said to Birchie after time, Birchie said to me at the time, he went, mate, I am knackered. I was like, I'm getting cramp already. I've already got cramp. And I think if we were still there now, we would have scored a second goal. They had us, you know, they had us. And we brought Moose on, we brought Millsy on, we probably should have made them changes earlier. Talk about the ball flying as well. So their first goal, Jimmy had bombed on, so I saw it, so I pulled into right back, keeper kicked the ball, and I thought, I've got this. All of a sudden, it just kept going and going and going, straight over my head, into the channel. Greeny had done the same as me, so we were scrambling to get back, knocked off Greeny. Then the corner came in, and again, it just held. The horse has come out to catch it, and he's just carried on going over the horse. Bit of a fumbling goal and stuff. But yeah, they deserved to win that game by a mile. So for me, Going back now, if I could turn the clock back, Moose would start. 100% Moose would start, and Nathan Summers would start. I still wouldn't start Millsy. Pabs and Simo were great together, so I still wouldn't start Millsy. So that's my take on the big debate of who should have played, why they didn't play, why I agree that they didn't deserve to play, but the effect that it had of them not playing. You know, we didn't lose that game because we didn't start Moose and Millsy or Summers, but we might have had a better chance if we had Moose, definitely. Because the thing with Moose is, he might have made it by himself, he could score that trick. Because he was that good, that if he did make it about himself, and it worked for him, I remember down here he scored 4, I think, it was the Moose show. He was unstoppable. So that's my take on the whole formation and personnel and everything of Wembley, and why we lost, but why we went with what we went with.
I think it's interesting, your opinion, sure, as well, but for me, I knew, even when we were on top, that first 20 minutes, Horse looked like something wasn't quite right. He didn't look confident. I don't know what it was, but something didn't look right. And so when he didn't catch that ball for their first goal, I'd already said to someone, he's going to make a mistake today. Not to say that I'm going to lose us the game and that we go on and lose 4-1. But you could see, there was a few players like that, maybe Jamie Willits as well, that just didn't quite look right. And whether it was the occasion, whether it was, you know, because they must have struggled to sleep probably because of Wembley and all of that sort of thing. And do you think...
Well, these are players as well that have played league football. They haven't had that pressure of playing Morecambe at home or Stevenage at home or Aldershot at home in front of 5,000-6,000 people, Shrewsbury at home in front of 7,000 people. They haven't had that. So now the league took care of itself. We were too good. So did the Cubs. We were just too good. But then we had about 12-day gap, 13-day gap between the final. That's a long time in football. Honestly, people think if you miss a Saturday game, that's a long time in football. And that's a long time to get nervous about something and feel the pressure. Morpeth had a game midweek, I think, or the Saturday. Their league hadn't finished till later. So I remember thinking, because honestly now, if you miss one Saturday, you lose fitness. It's mad how quickly you can just lose that little edge. I remember thinking that longer gap's going to kill us a little bit. But yeah, I think the expectation and the pressure got to a few of the players. I think all of a sudden, I'm on TV. This is going to be, all my mates are coming. It's very different to, you have a bad game here, you get dragged after 50 minutes in front of 3,000 people. That's the same 3,000 people. My mum and dad weren't here, they didn't come to the Derby game. Now, my mates who I haven't even spoken to for 2 years are asking for tickets. It's on TV, everyone's texting you. That's huge pressure and expectation. And I do think that we struggled with it. And I didn't play well, but I don't think there is one person that could come out of that game with a hand up and say, do you know what, I did all right, I was quite happy with the way I played, I don't think I was one of this. And you can't carry that, you know what I mean? You've got to have 7 or 8 and then you make 3 subs. So yeah, I think we all let ourselves down. And some people didn't recover from it either. Summers, devastated he didn't play, devastated he was. Birchie lost his way a little bit for the first few games of next season, then tried to move on, and then I don't know whether he plays at all now. Birchie was a great player. 2 years ago he's captain of the West Brom under-23s. Now we can't find a club. He's going to the new Worcester team. Mental really. So it ruined a few players as well. Some players had to go away, and then Jamie Willits left halfway through, a third of the way through the next season, and it was literally because he could not carry on with the expectation he needed to play for Hereford United and for the C. We lost in the cup away at Tunbridge Wells, I think it was, or Tunbridge Angels.
Tunbridge Angels, yeah.
Then we lost in the cup at Salisbury, 2 cups in I think a week. And then Willits went into the beads on the Monday and said, I can't do it anymore, I cannot do it anymore, I need to go. And just all of that pressure just built up, and he just didn't want to take the pressure anymore of playing. And if you lose, it's not a case of you go and have a beer now with your mates, you're getting hammered. Saying, that's not good enough, that's not good enough, beats, that's not good enough. So yeah, I think the fallout of Wembley took its toll on a lot of players as well.
I mean, the goal wasn't bad that we scored, was it?
We want to talk. like I said, it's amazing to think it was, what, 75, 80 seconds in. And I'd already said to Birchie and Joe Tonelty, because the ball had gone on the left, and I looked and thought, wow, there's so much space from here, because they were just trying to press, just trying to get on top of us. Then it went out on the right, and I turned to Birchie and said, Joe, I said, listen, if the ball breaks to you, I'm on. Straight away, I'm on in the gap. Ball goes out to the left, knocks down, Birchie gets half a tackle, it bowls to Joe, and if you look there, all their three midfielders go straight to Joe. And then because I've said to him, mate, have a look, I'm in the space, if you go me, and then it was just one touch, it's it. And as I say, like, I've never hit a ball as well, and it is that ball as well. Like I said, normally that would have bounced twice. I didn't even see it going in the net. As soon as I hit it, I could see it going in the corner, and the keeper wasn't going to get there. I was off. And like, I look at it now, and like I said to you, it's really weird that I couldn't. Like, I see Greeny sprint off, like on the big view at the overlay our goal. You see Greeny sprint off Joel and that, and then I've got pictures of like Sid and Jimmy jumping on me and that, and I love that more than the goal. That togetherness we had and that celebration of my mates. They were best mates at the time. But then you stand up and you see your name on the thing, the crowd are going mental, like that sea of Hereford fans flipping it. That's unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah. What was it like walking out to that?
Oh,
crowd?
do you know what? We were so lucky in the fact that we walked out and we weren't behind us. To see the fans there was just like, wow. You know, you've got the pictures of the team lining up with the fans in the background. You know, if they were this side, you've got to walk out and turn around. Whereas to see walk out towards them was great. But then obviously you guys can celebrate for another 5 probably about another 5 minutes. We're back on it. We're back on it. And sometimes scoring that early, it ruins your game, because then you think, right, I've got to settle myself, and you lose that actual energy because no, I've got to settle myself. So that maybe affected me myself, because I tried to calm myself down too much, that maybe I lost my edge a little bit and my energy and everything. But yeah, you know, it's something to take away from the game, but it's so tainted with the result. So tainted. Like, I look at the goal against Aldershot that season, when I lobbed the keeper had come out, a real bad pitch, huge game. If we'd have lost that, Aldershot would have won the league, honestly. Even though we won by a few points, I do think they would have gone on to win it. And that, I can look back at that, I see it on YouTube sometimes, and that, I show my little boy and everything, and that's like, God, like, the whole occasion, Pabs' goal as well in that game, there's nothing can dampen that. And it's just so tainted, that Hereford game, because I almost feel guilty or embarrassed to tell people about it and everything, because it's like, but we lost 4. I always feel embarrassed by it, embarrassed about getting excited about it, because we lost 4-1. And like I said about the Leicester game, and like I said about the season where we just stayed up, I didn't do my job well enough on that day, that it so taints the goal. As much as I'm glad that if someone scored, it was me, you know, I've got that goal, I've shown my little boy, and he's like, wow, Daddy, and you know, it's just so, I always get that feeling of, but we lost 4-1.
Yeah, but you know, we started with no squad. We're immensely proud of that.
And if there's anyone we as fans who want to score that goal, it'd either be you or Greener.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that obviously Hereford United and everything else, and you guys came back to that level.
I think that's one thing in my career which I love. The fact that I've scored the last ever league goal for Hereford United. I've scored the goal at Wembley. I scored the goal that won us our last league so far. I scored the penalty, even though we went to win a few more games and we won by like 9 points or whatever. The actual game that we won was 1-0 and I scored that goal. Because they're things that no one can take away from me, do you know what I mean? No matter what happens, no one can score. Well, maybe someone can score another league goal for Hereford United, you know, depending on what happens over the next 5-10 years. But right now I've got the last ever league goal, and I like having that, because I like having that affiliation. I've still got some legacy with the club. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I could have scored 200 goals for Hereford United, but none of them might have been memorable, you know. So no one would, oh yeah, he scored some goals, he did. But it's that last league goal, Wembley, goal that won as a league, stuff like that, it's kind of like a bit more special to me. So it does mean a lot to me, but it is very hard to celebrate it sometimes, because my cynical Roy Keenness in my head just gets annoyed that we lost.
We obviously had a treble promotion under Peter Beadle. How did you see the squad evolve, and what was your kind of mind at the time? You know, after the third promotion, you know, what were you thinking in terms of like the next stage of your career?
Yeah, so you look at the 3 times we came second with Hereford United. The second season of Hereford FC was our weakest team again. We brought in Clayton, Fortune, Tristan, Plummer, good players and that. But again, bit of journeymen, people that were happy to come and pick up a bit of money, but not saying they didn't try, because Tris was great and Clayton was great. I played with Clayton at Darlington as well. But we just didn't have that cohesion that we did in the first season. I mean, we lost so many players from that first season. Harvey Rivers, Nate Summers, Aaron Birch, Moose, Sid. You know, you've got 5 players there that formed most of that season. So the second season, it wasn't that enjoyable. We lost in both the cups quite early. We won it a bit of a canter, but it was just a little bit. Whereas the last season, we brought in people like Dara and everyone, you know, again. So then we elevated our game a little bit. I loved that last season. I knew. So we're travelling up to Fleetwood for the FA Cup, and I got a phone call on the Friday morning to say, you've got into the fire service, your training starts on the 17th of January. So that game before Fleetwood, I knew that this was going to be my last season. And I had a real bad calf issue, and I was supposed to start. We did the warm-up, and I felt my calf tear in the warm-up, so I didn't play in the game. And then I think it was towards the end of December, I rang Beads and said, look mate, this is happening. And he was like, but you can still play. And I was like, my training's Monday to Friday, and I'm training until the start of April, so I'm free every weekend. I can make every training session on a Thursday, but if there's an away game on Tuesday, I'm going to have to miss it. I missed Kings Lynn away. I think I missed 3 games in total. But I felt a real shift with Beads when I told him. It was great. It was like, I went to play. Then we brought in Billy Murphy. And I feel like that second half of the season, Beads started to phase me out a little bit, as in, if he didn't have to play me, he didn't play me. I felt like it a little bit the second season. So I played with Birchie in the first season. I love playing with Birchie. Me and Birchie worked perfectly. Second season, it's Mike McGrath or Calvin Dinsley. Now they're different players. I'd get the ball in centre mid. Macca could be on the left wing. Dins could be at right back. They didn't have that football brain. They were go and win the ball, and I hated playing with them. And every game, Steve Jenkins would come to me and say, mate, you know what Macca's like, you know what Dean is like, just hold your position. Okay, no problem. End of the season came, Beats contract talks, and he's like, you're not the same player. And I'm like, right. And he goes, you're letting Macca go and do it, Dean. So I'm like, hold on a minute, you've told me every game to sit in because, no, don't make excuse. And I could, okay, there's a little bit of a shift here. And then that season, I remember I only started 26 games that last season, a couple of injuries. Started 26, we won 24, we drew and lost 1. I used to keep tallies of everything. In those 26 games, I think it was, we only conceded 7 goals in those 26 games. And when I didn't play, we lost quite a lot. But for some reason, he was a bit reluctant to put me in. I'd asked to play in the hole as well, because we went to the field midfield, and Beats laughed it off, which I was a bit annoyed about. And I remember also in those games, I came on at half time in 2 games where we were losing or drawing, and we won. I came on against who was a team that we were 2-0 down until the last few minutes.
Slough.
Yeah, Slough.
Yeah.
Came on at 2-0 down, drew toward. And I put in a couple of crosses which led to the goals and stuff like that. So I thought but Beads had this thing about the fact that I wasn't making tackles. Dins and Macca, they go and make tackles and stuff, but I was like, but look at the games. Clean sheets, wins when I play. Macca and Dins, goals are going in, and they're getting booked because they're out of position, they're scrambling to get back, you know, I'm trying, but I could just tell there was I felt a little bit of a shift. I remember coming on half time, we lost against Kings Lynn on a Tuesday night, then we went somewhere on Saturday, wasn't at Kings Lynn, so I didn't play Saturday, we lost 3-1, and the fans were moaning at Beads at half time to bring me on, and he didn't. We lost 3-1, the fans were moaning at him. So I start the next game, and I remember Jenks coming up to me before the game and goes, see, you got what you wanted now, got the fans shouting for you to play, so I expect something from you today. And I just thought, that's real, like, you know, I didn't like it, you know what I mean? So I knew my time was running out. But personally, I think it got to a point where Beads knew we had to start playing me because we would win when I played. I was playing a little bit further forward now in a 3, so I was getting a few more goals and stuff like that. We played against Kettering, obviously, I managed to score. We won, that was my last league game, I came off. And then we went to Truro, I was on the bench. And then I rang Beads after the Truro game because we still had Lads Club, and I said, look, I know you've let me have a send-off against Kettering because you bought me off with 20 minutes to go so I could have that, which I wanted. I said, well, I want to play Saturday against Lads Club. I said, like, I know that you've got to prepare for next season, I know everyone wants to play. I said, but I've got to play. And I said to him, and you know as well, Beads, we're playing against Lads Club, some people might not take you, you know what you'll get out of me. It was like, yeah, and I've been speaking to some of the lads, because no one knew I was retiring until just before the Kettering game, and I was speaking to some of the lads in the bath at the Kettering game, and they were like, you're not going to go though, are you? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, Beads won't let you go, you know, whether you just stay as a coach or you play here and there, because you can still play a lot of games. Like, I could play 60% of the games, but it's not fun anyway. So I was like, thinking back now, I was thinking, I'm going to be involved. He will still keep me involved. And then that conversation when I said, can I play? And he said, what are you going to do after this season? And I thought, okay, he's going to offer me a role somewhere, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go. I'm like, oh, I don't know, mate, you know. He said, oh, well, I think Westington have you. And I thought, that's the end of my career. And literally, bang, my heart sank on the phone. I remember exactly where I stood in my house. My heart just sank, because I knew, that's it. There's no more Hereford anymore. He just literally just cut it off on me like that. He didn't mean to. You know, don't get me wrong, he wasn't trying to be harsh or anything. He was probably trying to look out for me. He probably thought, well, I can't keep you because you can't give me enough. But I think all the lads saying to me, you'll be here as a coach or, you know, something, I think it got in my head. And then when he said that, I thought, oh no, that's it. And it still hits me now. Having a phone call with him.
Yeah.
So we played Lads Club on the Saturday. I think we won 4 or 5-0. When I ran, I've never run so much in my life. I've never been so tired in my life. Their midfielder kept shouting at me because I just wouldn't stop. I was knackered. And then, that was the end of the career. And, you know, 3 promotions. I couldn't have gone out any better in my career. We talk about it's time for Newport, you know, I could have stayed at Newport for 2 years and then maybe gone to, who knows, Cheltenham, you know, Bristol, you know, not Bristol because they've been too high, but do you know what I mean? Forest Green, you know, something. But I'm so happy and I feel so proud of the fact that I've had such an affiliation with a club and a city as opposed to just a journeyman who's maybe earned a little bit more money, you know, maybe played in the league that little bit longer. The fact that I finished those 3 years trying to get Hereford back to however high I could get them and achieved everything that I could with Hereford FC in those 3 years, I'm so proud of that. I'd take that any day over having an extra couple of years in the league for clubs that I don't care about or anything like that. So I'm really lucky that I managed to finish that way. Three in a row. And then to take that further the next season, you know, that season we lost me, Pabs, Millsy, Jimmy, Dara, and then Beads goes. I sat in that bath after the Lads Club game and I said to myself, Beads has got to get moved this summer. And they're like, why? I said, because if you don't, I'm telling you now, I could get the feel around the chairman, he'll be gone. I said, he'll be gone by September. And then he gets sacked September, October time. You could just tell because him and the chairman butting heads a little bit. And I think it was only like 2-3 losses in a row and Beads was gone, wasn't he? And then Horse goes. And then Greeny gets properly screwed over by the people that come in, you know, you go on loan to Westfields, but then you'll have a coaching role, end of the season, you'll stay, there's no coaching role, you know. Greeny, I spoke to Greeny on his testimony and he was like, I wish I'd left when you left. He said, oh, you got such a good send-off and left at this high. He said, I've just really fizzled out and it's not the same. So I got lucky with everything in my career with Hereford. I was so lucky, you know. We talk about it, a week away when I was 19 from probably never playing football again at any type of level. Hereford take me. 18 months off from football because I've had 3 operations on my hip. There's Hereford again for me. You know, I've blown my knee out at Tamworth. Hereford FC are here. You know what I mean? Everything worked out for me for Hereford because of Hereford. And that's why I just love the fact that my career has been at a club like this, at this club, with this fans and this ground and this city and everything. it's just been flipping perfect for me, you know.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps.
Yeah, what a fantastic way to finish the podcast there. You know, I mean, that was fantastic memories in there, but that final thing you just said then was amazing. Thanks so much for coming and talking to us today.
You know, and I think there are other players that went on to leave Hereford, like Ben Smith, and he came back. Evans came back. You know, Tony James came back. I used to say that this is like the island on Lost, and the TV show Lost. It just calls you back. That's like I've always said it, especially for myself. Like it's always called me back. Like I say, when I came back from Oldham, as soon as I got to that roundabout at the bottom of Elston and Roman Road, I was back. I felt like I was where I should be. And I married a girl from Hereford who will never leave Hereford. So I ain't going. Even if everyone started booing me, my wife isn't going to leave Hereford. So yeah, and I appreciate you guys. You know, like my ego, isn't it? But you saying what you said and everything, it just makes me know that career that I had was worthwhile. You know, the fact that I wasn't selfish, and I probably should have taken the money somewhere else, or I probably should have said, no, I want to play number 10 in my career. If I've got to leave Hereford, I'll leave it. You know, the fact that I wish sometimes that I'd done that, but then it always brings me back to the fact that no, because then I'd lose this. And you saying what you said, you know, about the Morecambe game, and it started your little affiliation and stuff like that, it makes it all worthwhile, you know. And hearing things like that now, where people at work now in the fire service, they don't want to talk about, they don't want to hear me telling me how I was. Do you know what I mean? They've not a clue. They're not Hereford fans. They just think I play for the club around the corner. So, you know, it just boosts my ego, things like that. It means a lot as well. Do you know what I mean? It actually means something to me when I hear people say that. So I appreciate that as well. You know, it makes me know that my career was worthwhile. If you know what I mean.
Well, the word legend is overused in football a lot, but you, sir, are an absolute legend.
Maybe I'll get one of the new floodlights.
I think you honestly should look around the book, genuinely. We could have done this for days.
I haven't even scratched the surface. I have not scratched the surface. The amount of players I've played with, stories I've got, with and insights. You know, do you know, a lot of people don't know what my view of the starting line of Wembley should be, and the reasons why, and what Morpeth said, and things like that. And you know, things like that are just really interesting as fans to know. You know, that's why everyone watches these podcasts, because they want to hear what Roy Keane says about how it was in the dressing room. Forget what you did on the pitch; they want to know the ins and outs of everything. Loads more stories on that part two.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll get back. But no, as I say, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, my friend.
Cheers, guys.
Amazing. That was absolutely brilliant.
And thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Cheers.
If you stayed this long.
Yeah.